Welcome into another episode of Red Zone Talk. I'm Owen Burke. He's Tim Hunt. The draft is officially in the books, folks. We were planning on doing some first round stuff, but some scheduling stuff came up. So, coming out a little later than we wanted. So, we're going to change up a little bit what we planned on doing. So, we're just going to run through some picks that we like, some picks that we don't like, and just kind of hit the big hitters. Not going to get lost in a 10-minute conversation about the 14th best tackle in the draft. Because if we did pick by pick, you'd have 14 no tackles in the first round. So it's what it felt like watching 14 offensive players go off the board before a single defensive one did.
It was pretty cool draft. Yeah, I was about to say the longest drought we had in a defensive player all year, and then the same time, super cool. The most quarterbacks ever taken in the first round at the same time. So
Yeah.
all six guys went in the first round. So
Yeah, tied the record of the legendary 1983 draft that had six go in the first. The last quarterback picked in that draft, I think, was either 25 or 27. The sixth quarterback in this class was 12.
yeah,
So, but yeah, that is the longest string of only offensive players drafted at any stretch in any draft. So you could have picked a second round window of 14 picks. There's never been a 14 pick run of all offense, and we had it the first 14 off the board. So
the other interesting thing to me is we went a while without another QB outside the first because
yeah,
I think Spentler Rattler was the first one, and he didn't go until the fourth. I want to
was it
say,
the third or the fourth? Yeah, that
yeah.
Rattler went to the Saints.
So it was a big gap there.
Yeah, very large gap, but receivers tackles were flying like nobody's business next to quarterbacks, and we're gonna dig into a lot of the big names in the first round. So we'll get to quite a few of them. We're gonna skip some of the boring ones and just kind of bullet point the ones that we don't have a ton to talk about, just to try to keep tidy on time. So
Yeah. Caleb Williams going 101. Shocker. Who saw that one coming?
yep,
The pick you got to make. Will he be the first quarterback in Bears history to throw for 4,000 yards? My heart says yes.
he's got to be.
I think I want to give the Bears a little bit of kudos. We don't have to spend a ton of time on this, but we talked about it a little bit in the preview draft episode, but they have never prepared a team for a quarterback like this team, right?
I don't think anybody's ever prepared this
Yeah,
well, but definitely them. Yeah, 100%.
Cole Kmet's a middle of the road tight end, a good weapon, right? Like he's going to be solid still. And then you add Keenan Allen, you had DJ Moore last year, you draft Romo Dunze. This team's ready to win like right now, and
Mm-hmm.
it's going to have a loaded offense, right? DeAndre Swift is the running back. They've got six guys deep of really talented NFL players. So I have to give them a little kudos for being like, hey, we've messed up plenty of times before, but we're not doing it again with this one. I think Caleb's going to have everything he needs to succeed. The biggest question is his head coach. So
True. It might be stunted growth if they get rid of Eberflus after year one or in the middle of year one if it's going that sour. But yeah, I mean, they added Gerald Everett to this offense as well this offseason. So two strong tight ends, three good receivers, a great running back. They just got to make sure the O line's straight. And obviously, most of the time, you can somewhat tell how good an O line's going to be, but you're really not going to know for sure until they just get out there and they're playing five versus five, big on big. So, there's definitely still some good free agent offensive linemen out there that they could go to add, but and I'll talk more about Rome when we get there. But obviously, slam dunk of the draft. We've known this, I'd say, for at least 4 months, but I mean, we've theorized it for over a year now that
here,
this is
yeah,
going to happen. So
definitely. Jaden Daniels goes at the 102. We had kind of suspected this for a long time, right? We
yeah,
thought when they hired Cliff Kingsbury, we're like, hey, this screams Jaden Daniels at this point.
mm-hmm.
And sure enough, that's the route they went. I'm not the biggest Jaden Daniels fan. I think he has NFL upside, but like you said a lot, like he takes bad hits. Like he gets hammered sometimes. And he can't do that at the NFL level because the hits are going to be worse and it's only going to be, more straining on his body when he goes through that. But I'm curious to see how this works out in Washington. It's not a bad situation. I don't know if it's great, not as good as obviously like the Bears situation
Yeah.
is. Or if you look at where the quarterbacks go, like where would you rank Washington's scenario?
Well, usually that's an easy question, but when we're talking about six teams that I'd sit here and think of, I definitely think he's in a better spot than Drake May is coming into
I
in New
agree.
England.
Yeah.
Um,
I would have him at 5. So I would,
5.
if you ask me like what situations would you take, I'd take Chicago's at 1. I think that team is pretty built to win right now. And then I would take why am I just had the team Minnesota. There they go. I'd take Minnesota at 2, Jay
Yep.
Jettas, TJ Hawkinson, a solid
Jordan
offensive
Addison.
line, Jordan Addison, a great offensive head coach. Um, and then I'd take Atlanta at 3, even though it feels kind of like cheating because it's like
They have a quarterback?
they have a quarterback. So it's like if you're, I'm just looking at weapons wise though.
Yeah.
I'd probably put them at 3. You could argue them into 2. Then I'd probably take Denver over Washington situation. Even though they got rid of Jerry Judy, I still like Corton Sutton. Um, and I like Sean Payton as a head coach more than I like Ron Rivera. So I'd
Well,
give
Rivera
us
got
that edge.
fired. It's
Or Dan Quinn,
Dan
sorry.
Quinn, yeah.
Yeah, I mean tomatoes, tomatoes. Really, I
You're not
mean
wrong, yeah. You're not
we're
wrong about that.
we're talking. I like Dan Quinn. I just don't know if I like Dan Quinn with a rookie head coach or a rookie quarterback. Excuse me.
Yeah, that one's tough. That one is close. That one is close. I definitely think the best receiver there is Terry McLaurin in Washington, but
I
there
agree.
are some things that lean Denver that way. So yeah, right around in the same spot. But yeah, they bring in Marcus Mariota right to be the backups. They're not having to change the playbook a lot. If Jaden does get hurt, I like that pre-planning aspect of it. And it also helps your defense get better. Guarding against those guys at the end of the day. So. But yeah, I think he has a couple processing issues, just like kind of working through his routes and not playing that freestyle football because it doesn't always work and it can get you hurt a lot at the NFL level, just even behind the line of scrimmage. Rolling out of a clean pocket will kill your offense and make your offensive lineman want to kill you. So it's some of those things that I'm somewhat worried about. And then yes, again, I've seen the Sonic coins get knocked out of this guy more times than once, and he's not going to have a lot. He's had like 5 lives in college to me, and one of those hits took each one, and he's going to have 2 of those lives in the NFL at best, where he's taken that big of a hit from somebody, and he's just going to get up. So yeah, they. I'm not a fan of the player. I love how they have set up for him. I think they have done the right things to kind of give him a shot to be successful. So yeah, I think Washington, at least, they may not have went with the guy we thought they would have, but again, they have planned for this guy to be their quarterback. Hopefully they are ready for it. So
Yeah. All right. Patriots take Drake May at 103. I'm personally very happy about this pick. I think May was the right pick. Don't be surprised if May isn't the week 1 starter. I'm going to say that out loud. I think they brought in uh, Brissett to be that guy. Brissett's a good bridge quarterback, right? Like
very good.
he's like the guy that he's the example of the guy you want to bring in, have develop a rookie, start half your season, then let May take over. Um, and so I think ultimately that'll be a good thing for them. They get them a little bit of help in round 2 with their wide receiver room. I can't remember the kid's name right now off the top of
Jalen
my head.
Polk.
Yeah, Polk out of Washington,
Mm-hmm.
um, who I honestly didn't have on my radar, but all that much. But I'm excited for it. But again, I think there's some room to grow for Maine. I think there's some room to grow for the Patriots. I don't have high expectations going into next year, right? I still think they're probably a 5-win team next year at most. And that's okay, right? It'll give them an opportunity to, hey, Drake, we might not have the help this year for you, but we still have a ton of cap space. They didn't burn a lot of it this offseason, and
Mm-hmm.
they'll be able to go out and get him a guy next year's draft. So,
Yep. Yep. Yeah, I agree. It's a plan for the future. He is a little bit of a project, but again, this is a team that isn't ready to win right now, right? So you could take a year or half a year and let this guy just kind of learn and get ready. Probably behind the second best bridge quarterback of all time, behind Tyrod Taylor, who just seems to
yeah.
sprout stars up behind him. Um, but yeah, Jacoby and he has familiarity with New England, right? He's played there before, so he's going to be used to. Obviously, it's not the full Patriot way anymore without Bill, but you're still getting a taste of it.
Yeah.
With Gerard Mayo, like not a ton's going to change. He's going to be used to that part. So yeah, they need some playmakers on the offensive side of the ball. I mean, that is where they're lacking still. I like Jalen Polk. I think they took another receiver if I remember right, but
Yeah.
yeah,
UFC kid, University of Central Florida. I can't remember. I think in the fourth round or fifth
I gotta
round.
see where Johnny Davis landed. That kid's a freak of nature. I don't remember.
Javon Baker is who they took.
Oh yeah, I liked his comments afterwards. He said, "Make sure you bring popcorn to the game because I make people in wheelchairs stand up." So that guy seems to be an entertainer nonetheless.
He's got some flair, which is good for a wide receiver. That's what I want my wide receiver to have. So
Oh, of course. Johnny Wilson landed with the fucking Eagles. God damn it.
yeah,
He's a 6'6" freak of nature at receiver, and of course he landed with them in the 5th round. I want to die. All right, Howie Roseman is going to be banned from. I think Howie Roseman has a DraftKings account. Actually, I'm pretty sure. Looking at our files, he listens to the show every week, and his numbers almost correlated mine this last year. So the NFL might want to look into that. That guy needs to be
might
investigated.
dig into
Yeah.
him.
Yeah, yeah, and he does not have an interpreter either. All right, there's no way out of this. Howie Roseman's got to go. Got
He
to go.
speaks full English.
Yeah, he needs to stop.
But yeah, I like the move. I think it's especially with how bad the QB class is looking next year.
Yeah,
Um, Getting a guy like this, who might have been the number one guy last year, right? There was a lot of talk that if he could have come out, he would have been in that top tier of guys. So to get him at third, I think is a steal. I think he should have been the second guy. I think you run that in and you're happy with it. So,
agreed.
Number 4, the Cardinals take Marvin Harrison Jr., which I think is
B
the right
plus.
call. Yeah, B
B
plus.
plus. Yeah, I was just looking at some draft grades. They gave that pick a B plus. That's a joke. This is a slam dunk. This is an A plus.
He was my second best player in the whole draft,
Yeah.
behind Caleb Williams. I think Caleb Williams is too much of a potential home run to not be one. I know a lot of people have Marvin Harrison as the one. Um, I think it's a really good pickup for Arizona. Um, he kind of compares pretty well to Larry Fitz in a lot of strange
Yeah,
ways.
he's a little bit faster, a little bit more athletic than Larry was coming out, but I mean, we've seen Kyler Murray play at a high level with DeAndre Hopkins, and that to me is he's not as physically imposing as DeAndre is, but like I think he's more well rounded than DeAndre Hopkins is. He's got the hands. This is a slam dunk. This is a no brainer.
Yeah. I like it. I think it was the smart move, the right decision to take in the moment.
Yep. Yep.
Um, yeah, not much more to say about that one.
This is why you went tackle last year, right? You didn't reach on a receiver, you didn't go for a weapon last year. You took a tackle in Paris Johnson, had a shaky first half, but picked it up in the second. And look at that. You didn't take the flashy guy last year, and you got the flashiest guy at 4 this year. So well worth the wait by the Cardinals.
Joe Alt goes number 5 to the Chargers. I did a mock for one of my fantasy football leagues. We decided the order based on a mock draft, and I was 7 through 7 of the first 7 picks.
Hell yeah.
I didn't get one wrong until the one shocking pick of the draft. So
yeah, until we get to that pick next.
yeah, so I thought Joe Alt was the guy. He just feels like a Jim Harbaugh guy, responsible, doesn't make mistakes, not going to be penalized, and can kind of be your anchor for this team going forward.
This pick proves that you could say whatever you want about the roster, how it's constructed, how many games they're going to win, how good they're going to be. This is proof that the Chargers are at least thinking differently up top. Because I was sitting there, I'm like, they're going to go Neighbors. It should be Alt because they have that was why they struggled last year, was because Herbert didn't have time to get the ball to his big body receivers. They need a tackle, but they're going to go Neighbors. Sure enough, Jim Harbaugh's already kind of changing things around there. Greg Roman, they bring in, to me, the best tackle in this class, a Penny Sewell level type guy. I mean, I think, is going to be a mauler. People have said he's going to have a Hall of Fame career already just after draft night. And I'm like, it might be a little far, but like people are thinking Joe Thomas when they're hearing Joe Alt. And, that is a lot to wear for a rookie to try to have those expectations, but he is that good coming out of Notre Dame. So
my favorite meme I think I saw is, do you remember the whole Joe when Jamar Chase pick came up in Cincy and there was all the debate around it, right?
Yeah.
Do you put an offensive line around Joe, or do you give him the weapon? And I saw that same meme kind of floating where it was like, Justin Herbert with no offensive line. It's just him getting sacked. And it's like Justin Herbert with a line and he's got a clean pocket and it's just Jordan Addison dropping it. I was like, that's good. Yeah. That was solid stuff right there.
That was. But
I mean, we're going to talk about their second round pick, but I thought, see, this is why I thought this was like, I thought a lot of teams were going to do exactly what they did, which was wait and say, okay, hey, outside of the top four wide receivers, we think the gap becomes so much smaller to guys you're going to be able to get in the second round. We'll just wait and just take
Yeah.
a guy there and get, you know, 75% of, what Marvin Harrison or Malik Neighbors or, you know what I mean? Maybe these guys aren't going to be game changers in the second, but they're going to be really solid targets. So
Yeah.
I like the pick. Number 6, the Giants get Malik Neighbors. I like the pick. It's just strange to think like this is who the Giants would have because it just doesn't feel like them at all. This over the top, explosive, deep threat. And it's like, is Danny Dimes going to be able to hit it? I don't know. Like, I think it's going to be real interesting to see.
It fits with the scheme. It doesn't fit with the quarterback. That's the problem. Like
Yeah.
I think Malik Neighbors and Brian Daboll's offense. I'm like, oh shit, that's fucking. Daniel Jones is throwing the ball. Well, fucking. What's the point then?
Right.
So and I draw a question to it a little bit because again, like if I ask, like if I were to go to the Giants GM and be like, okay, so did you not like any quarterbacks in this class, or like did you not like anybody outside of the top three? Because everybody's available, right? Penix, Nix, and McCarthy are all available at 6. And like you have to sit there and tell me that you don't think any of those guys is going to be a franchise quarterback because this is the NFL. And if you think a guy is a franchise quarterback and you don't have one, you draft him, right? That is how this is the most important position. And when you can come up when it says when your logo is on the clock and there's a guy you believe is a franchise quarterback's available, you take him. So they must not have liked any of the other 3 guys, reach or not. If you feel like a guy is the guy, you take him, whether it's 6, 1, 15, or 27, or 265 if you ask the Niners, right? So I like Neighbors. I don't know if I like just building an offense for Daniel Jones. And again, we already mentioned the quarterback class not being super strong next year. It's just, it feels like, if they were pick 7 and all 6 quarterbacks went in the first 6 picks, you're like, well, what are you going to do? Like, right, your kind of hands are tied here, but I don't
I,
know.
I see. I kind of see it this way as like, hey, we don't have to take a quarterback, but we have to improve our offense.
Yeah.
And getting a rookie QB and putting him in the Giants offense is a lot similar to the Patriots. I would almost argue somewhat worse, right? Like at least there's some pieces in New England where you're like, oh, I could see that. But without Saquon was that offense last year. So
Yeah.
I think maybe you get Neighbors and you try to fix the quarterback situation next year. I don't think it's crazy for a team like New York. They're probably not going to be very good next year, anyways. So
Yeah, my growing concern now is how long of a leash do you give Dable? And it's not a question of, oh, well, Dable's the problem. How much of a leash are you going to give before you fix it? It's he's the right coach, but there's only so many losing seasons you can have before you're like, okay, well, we haven't
my
put the right team out there yet.
my gut tells me this is the last year of Dayball in New York.
And
Um,
someone's going to get a great fucking head coach. I will tell you that.
yeah, and honestly, I mean the turnaround was fast in New York, but I mean I think Dayball probably has to go back to being an offensive coordinator because
Think so?
it'll be 3 years that was kind of ugly in New York back to back to back. So
Yeah, I don't know. I think he's one of those guys that has head coach in him, just did not line up well with the time of him getting the job there.
I think it was a bad timing of the
If they
situation.
didn't re-sign Daniel Jones, we might be having a different conversation right now, right? Who knows who the quarterback is or what they're able to do at this point. But yeah, again, if you feel like there's a franchise quarterback, to me, you get one. They must not have liked those 3 guys. So they get the best receiver available and a desperate need of a playmaker on the offensive side of the ball. So all in all, not terrible, but it did puzzle me a hair.
All right, then we have the Tennessee Titans taking J.C. Latham. Um, I was okay with it. I don't know if this is the guy I would have gone and got if I was
I agree.
Tennessee, but it's Tennessee does a lot of stuff that confuses me year in and year out, and this just kind of fell on pace with that.
Yeah, I would agree. I think he might have the upside for the second best tackle in this class behind Joe Alt. Like the upside of Joe Alt without the floor of it. The only issue is there's probably 2, if not 3 guys that are within a 5% limit of that ceiling. and still probably a good 10 to 15% higher floors, right? There were much safer picks um, that don't have, it's not like a drastic loss in upside to get a safer guy there. So to me, Atlanta's rolling around at 8, and the second best tackle is still there. Whether you think it's Fuaga or whoever you think it may be, I don't think it was J.C. Latham. So, not saying that it won't work. They're going to have a run game to try to put together this year with Tony Pollard, and he'll be a big part of that. He's a big mauling left tackle, and he'll be trying to clear out some space. They took a tackle last year in the first round too, didn't they?
Yeah, they did. I
Don't
can't
remember who
remember
it
his name,
was.
but
Skoronsky. Yeah.
yeah, Peter Sharonsky out of,
Yeah. So
was
they
it
took Skoronsky
Northwestern?
last year. So they're building an O line, right? Whether it's Will Levis or the guy after him. So you can never really turn your nose up at that. I just think there was a better player at that position here.
Yeah, I agree with everything you said there. Now we get into the spicier pick. Number 8, Michael Penix Jr. goes to the Atlanta Falcons. I don't know. I have mixed feelings on it. I don't think this is what I would have done if I were in their shoes, right? I probably would have gone defense or something that builds towards the right now and the future. They just went all in on the future.
Yeah. And the contract they gave Kirk Cousins is all in on now. So where are we?
Yeah,
Because my money is tied up now. My assets are tied up for the future. And we're going to be stuck. That's where they're at right now. I like Penix, and I don't like this pick. I love Penix. I would go on a limb and say he was the third best quarterback in this class, better than Jane Daniels. I don't like this pick. Now, if Kirk signed that contract 3 years ago and say this is the last year, maybe even the second to last year, I'd be like, okay, we're kind of planning for that coming. This is a 4 year contract they handed out, right? Or was it a 2 year? I thought it was a 4.
it's a 4 year. Their first real out without taking a massive hit is after year 3.
Yeah.
After year 3, it's only a $12.5 million dead cap hit.
And like it may all work out, right? Maybe they Green Bay their way into this thing, and a 27-year-old first year starter, Michael Penix, comes out and could play well for a year and a fifth year option before getting a one contract at the NFL level. And maybe they win some games. But again, now Kirk in the last year of his deal, maybe because, right, I don't like the quarterbacks next year. So maybe I'm planning for that and I'm taking Penix here because I like him. It does not make sense when he's going to have to sit for at least 2, if not 3 years. And you could have gotten the best player available, the second best tackle, any defensive player you wanted, Romo Dunes, Brock Bowers, whatever. They could have done anything that wasn't a quarterback there and had their pick of the litter pretty much, except for Joe Alton, 2 receivers. And yeah, they took a guy that I like a lot and that I think would do well in their offense, but when does the chance come? And it also, the communication of not telling Kirk at all is
Yeah,
questionable. I don't know.
it stirs up stuff that isn't necessarily good. Now, from a team building standpoint, if Kirk gets hurt, they look like geniuses, right?
Yeah,
Because hey, we've got a replacement plan ready to go in the wings, ready to play right now. Um, so I guess I kind of like it from that standpoint.
yeah,
I I don't know. It's there's a lot to take in when it comes to that. I see a lot of people are like, well, what if Kirk's not the same? Like, I don't think, Kirk was very athletic before, so I don't think him tearing his Achilles really is changing the needle of what he can do. Um, and I guess, I mean, if I had to pick someone for Michael Penix to learn from, Kirk's not that far off from him, right? They're both
true,
pocket kind of guys.
true.
Penix likes the deep ball a lot more than Kirk does, but it might be a good fix. I don't know. Um, I kind of like it because I thought Penix needed to sit and learn how to just throw the wide open ball. And Kirk's the master of the check down. So maybe that's
True.
the thought process of like, hey, everything this kid's bad at, Kirk's great at. We'll give him 2 years with him. And then, I mean, maybe it's a 2 year plan, right? Kirk starts this year, next year, and then Penix starts the year 3, and you just eat that money for a year.
Yeah, it's just one of those things where if there was one thing done differently, whether it was the length of the contract, the totality of the contract, financially, the money that was tied up into it, or where the out comes, right? If that big out was in year 2 instead of year 3, I would like this pick a lot more, and I think it would make a
Yeah.
lot more sense. But again, it's just you're going to lose one of these situations. Either pick eight's going to be wasted, or all that money on Kirk Cousins is going to be wasted in the long run. Now, it's nice that you're going to have a winner out of those two situations, most likely going forward. But I also think you've either tied up $120 million in losses or lost the eighth pick for nothing. And both of those things suck. So hopefully one of them pans.
Yeah. All right. Number 9, the Bears get Romo Dunze, who I had as my wide receiver too. I think he's a little bit more of a complete player than Neighbors. Neighbors is obviously some of the best speed in this draft. It knows how to use it really well. But I like Romo. I think is a really good pick for them. I think he adds a deep threat that Keenan Allen doesn't really bring. DJ Moore is definitely a after the catch kind of guy. You know what I mean? He's your yak guy, but I think Rome is just that third element that this team needed, where they're going to have all elements, right? They're going to be able to throw the ball deep, throw it short, throw it in the midfield. You know, they've got a route technician, they've got an explosive guy, they've got a little bit of everything, and I thought it was smart. They didn't panic. They maybe could have traded down and got some more value if they felt they needed it. But ultimately, I think they got the second best receiver in this class. So I like the move a lot.
Yeah, I like it because I don't, like you said, they didn't draft, another 6'4" guy that can't move like Keenan Allen, right? Like speed wise,
Mm-hmm.
right? They're adding different body types to their receiver room. I always like diversifying that talent pool. And again, like you said, get the second best pass catcher in the class, you're pretty solid. I am somewhat curious that it could have been, again, when they're coming up at 9 here, the second best tackles on the board, any defensive player you want in the secondary, edge rush, or whatever is sitting there. And we talk about how deep the receiver class is. I'm curious. I would have loved to see them get. Now, again, obviously the corner sat there for a while, so it's crazy to see first corner go at what 22, and then be like, oh,
Yeah.
they should have taken a corner at 9. But you toss him in there on the back end across from Jalen Johnson, they just re-signed, and you get a Keon Coleman in the first pick of the second round. Like, I like that a lot. And again, but I'm okay with what they did in the long run, and why it still gets a good BB plus for me is that Romo Dunes is that special type of guy. Now Rome goes at 8, and then they take Brian Thomas Jr. at 9. I'm like, no fucking way.
Mm-hmm.
Get a tackle, get a defensive player, but I do think Rome is special enough to kind of override what was on the board.
And all the teams we thought would trade down didn't, because
Yeah,
there must not have been value. There must
yeah,
not have been somebody going, "Hey, I really want to get in the top 10 and I'm willing to pay 2 first for it." Right?
yeah. And the other thing that I was surprised, I didn't see a ton of just the smaller moves up throughout. We had a couple. I
Mm-hmm.
was expecting a record level, which I think the record was 9 in 2022. And I thought, man, there might be a chance here. But I think a lot of teams were hesitant to, give up the 20 pick slide in the third to go up 5 spots in the first, just because of how valuable that third rounder was going to end up becoming. Because again, this, especially when you're talking about receivers and linemen, this class was somewhat pretty deep. Like, there was
We
some talent.
we had 7 draft night trades.
Really, still 7.
Yeah,
I was kind of expected, like I said, I was expected to break that record at 9, or
because
tie it maybe
you had Minnesota and the Jets was one. You had Minnesota moving up again. Uh, I
to
guess
get,
that was Minnesota with Jacksonville,
yeah, to
and
get
then
verse, or no,
you had to get Dallas Turner, and then you had the Lions moving up with the Cardinals, I believe, and
yeah,
then you had the Chiefs moving up, you had the Cowboys moving up, and then you had the Panthers. So we had 6. You had the
yeah,
Panthers moving back up. So you had a couple moves for sure.
yeah. Yeah, I was expecting a couple more, but again, I think people were really valuing those second and third round picks, like you're saying. There, you could get a wide receiver 2 in the third round of this class. I don't think it's not a slam dunk take, but I feel pretty confident in saying that you could see a third rounder out of this class being the number 2 receiver on a team at the end of the year.
Yeah.
So there was some talent in this class, and I think a lot of people just didn't want to give up that later round talent. But overall, again, I would have liked to see a defensive player go there, but Rome is special enough to kind of override that need. It somewhat reminded me of Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf, and then adding Jackson Smith and Jigba last year. I was like, there's only so much you could do with the third receiver, but Rome is special enough to override that. Also, Keenan Allen's not going to play forever, so
Yeah, and I
there
was like,
there are some
it's
stuff on the
planned for the
back end.
future. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's their next generation. They're ready for that. So, um, but all right, number 10, you had Minnesota get JJ McCarthy. They traded up one pick for him. Didn't really gave up a mid round pick for it.
yep,
A lot of hype that he was going to have to. You're going to have to go up to the top 5 to get a guy like that,
5,
top
yeah,
7 somewhere in there, and they kind of stayed patient. And when their time came, they said, "All right, we'll give up a fourth to guarantee that we get our guy."
hmm
Um, I like the move a lot. I like the patience by them. I thought they played it really, really, really well.
I agree.
Um, you had 2 firsts. You didn't really have to leverage them to get the guy ultimately you're probably were going to end up with. You know what I mean?
hmm
Um, I don't think Michael Penix was probably on the radar for them. And I think JJ McCarthy was maybe the guy. I think maybe it was Drake May, but I bet you the asking price to get to 3 was
Way too high.
insane. Yeah,
Yeah,
I bet you it was just too high for a lot of teams to want to play. And getting McCarthy at 10, I think is good value.
yep.
I don't know if he's a top 10 worthy type of player. I think it's going to be really interesting to see. He also seems like a guy who's probably going to sit about half the year. And then Darnold's going to play, and then you're going to kind of get to see what McCarthy does. But he's ultimately in a really good situation.
Yeah, this is what we're talking about when we say like, oh, Brock Purdy can win when he has all these things, right? Those type of quarterbacks can still the non-special guys can still win you games and championships if they're set up correctly. They're on the road to it. Now, the only thing that I don't like is this is probably the shakiest the Vikings run game has been since like AP would get hurt and Toby Gerhart was the number one guy.
Mm-hmm.
Because Dalvin Cook's been the guy everyone thought Alexander Madison was going to be. He obviously is not. So we're taking a guy that really heavily relied upon the run game and play action in college. And not only does he not have a great run game, I don't think he has even a solid run game at this point. So
Yeah,
again,
I mean, Cam Akers, a full year, we'll see what he can do.
I'm curious to see how it all shakes out, and a lot of that comes back to the offensive line as well, right? You can still have a solid run game with a running back 30 as long as he's you're clearing 18 wheeler size holes for him. He'll have success all day. So Dalton Reiser's not coming back to them yet. Maybe he does resign. He's still a free agent right now, so they still have some pieces they can add back to the O line. But yeah, I think this is again, if you think a guy's a franchise quarterback, you can't turn your nose up at where you're going to draft him, right? If they had to give up, 11 and 23 to go to 5 or 6 to get it, then again, if you think that guy's a franchise quarterback, you take him wherever you think, you don't risk, like, oh, well, we might be able to get him at 23. Well, you also might not to be, and then you're fucked and you have Sam Darnold for it's your only quarterback. So
Quarterback, yeah.
yeah, I like the pick.
Yeah. Number 11, the Jets get Olu Fashanu. I thought it was the smart pick, right? I thought they
Yep.
were going to do something flashy, and they
Brock
didn't.
Bowers.
They did the right thing and just took, you know, in my opinion, probably the third best tackle in this draft. I'd say, maybe second. I don't know. It just kind of
Did
depends
you
on your preference.
you put him behind Fuaga?
Personally, I would have taken Fuaga. I don't like J.C. Latham a lot.
Uh,
There's something about those really big offensive tackles that I have a hard time fully believing in them
well,
because it's
big tackles out of Alabama, especially,
yeah, you
don't
just
have a
are.
great track record.
No, they do not. Ask the Giants how they like Evan Neal. So I
There's
think
tons of examples of that. If I dug, you would be shocked at how many first round tackles out of Alabama there have been, and how I could. There's probably been one or two to succeed.
well, we talk about the speed of the game for wide receivers and quarterbacks and cornerbacks, right? Offensive tackle too. You're going against the fastest guys in the league on the edge all the time. So you can't just maul people anymore, right? You have to be quick and be in good position. So I don't know if I always love it, but yeah, I'd put him somewhere up there. I thought it was, I mean, and they got another mid round pick. Like I thought the Jets overall did pretty good. So
Yeah, I like Fashanu a lot. Again, they could have went flashy, could have went Brian Thomas, could have went Brock Bowers, could have went defense, but Aaron Rodgers plays 4 plays last year. Mekhi Becton has struggled with his health. Vera Tucker's been banged up a little bit here and there. They needed the piece on the O line, and I think that's where I would have leaned Fuaga even more, just having the versatility to play a couple spots. But
Well, and I think too, I think Fashanu is a better pass blocker, and this team isn't going to be a run first team. So it's like
true.
fit wise, I think it was a better fit.
Yeah, yeah, it's a good pick. Wasn't the flashy pick, but that's what they needed. So
All right, number 12, Bo Nix gets drafted by the Broncos. I'm going to say this. I think the pick is a little bit of a reach, but I
yeah,
think it's going to be one of the picks we look back at and go, God, why did everyone call that a reach? He's going to be really, really good for this team. He is ready to go, and he's going to have Sean Payton. And he fits the kind of play style Sean Payton wants, right? Sean Payton wants a guy who's going to run an offense. They want a point guard, right? Hey, if I tell you this is read 1, 2, 3, and then get rid of it, then boom, that's exactly what Bo Nix is going to do, and it fits so well with what Sean Payton wants. So, is the talent there? Not so much, right? He's going to have to double down at what he's already really good at, which is throwing over the middle of the field. You know, making quick decisions. He's going to have to get really, really good at that and be accurate, and maybe he can be the next Drew Brees. I think that is the best case scenario for a Bo Nix. Um, he's never going to be anything super elite, but guys that aren't super elite and super special still can win a lot of games in this league. So
still can win you a championship, but again, there has to be a lot of things right around it. I think his success does heavily rely upon Sean Payton, right? Because we looked at this last year. And again, I know how much of a dumpster fire Russell Wilson was and everything, but we kind of looked at this and we're like, maybe this guy isn't the offensive genius that he's always been talked up to be. Now is the time where we're going to find out because, again, he could put Bo Nix in all the right spots, right? This, like you said, the fit is great. Is the talent there? Maybe not, but Sean Payton will lead him in the right direction. If it doesn't go well, to me, a lot of it is going to fall on Sean in the long run, unless Bo Nix is just inherently that bad, which I don't think he's going to be
I don't
that
think he
bad.
is either. So
So a lot of it's going to come down to Sean and what positions he puts him in, and that's to me where I feel on this pick. And I don't know, Sean, I think has a little bit of a big head sometimes, and I think he might make some bad decisions just because he wants to prove that he's Sean F. and Payton. But he's got Bo Nix, not Drake May, so he's gonna have to make sure he's making those decisions the right way.
yeah, I think it's a good relationship fit for both of them. So um, I still like it personally. I'm not upset with it. I think they didn't have a choice. They didn't have a second rounder, so they had to get a quarterback this in the first, and he was who was left. Right? There
Yeah,
was no. I thought there might be the choice between him and Michael Penix, but that didn't end up working out the way that everyone thought it would. So it kind of is what it is there. So.
yeah.
Alrighty. Number 13. This was honestly a little surprising to me. The Raiders take Brock Bowers. I don't know what they're doing. Um, I have no clue like what their plan is at quarterback. I guess I know
Gardner
that
F. and Minshew, that's what it is.
it is, I guess,
Well,
but
again, the other thing is, like you said, does Bo Nix go here? If they don't like Bo Nix in Denver, does he go here? Probably, because I think they were in kind of the same spot. Not really. The only issue is they at least have Gardner Minshew, not Zach Wilson, to fall back on. So I think they have a better backup plan. But again, what are you going to do? Take fucking Spencer Rattler at 13? There's not much you could do as far as quarterbacks are concerned at this
yeah, I
point.
mean, maybe it's Ryan Tannehill. Like Ryan
Joe
Tannehill's still a
Milton.
free agent. Yeah. Well,
Joe,
Joe Milton,
Joe Milton at 13.
yeah, you can't do that. But and then if you said, well, what's your secondary choice? I would have said defense. I don't know if I would have said tight end, right?
Yeah, after drafting Mayer in the second last year, that's really my only beef with this pick.
And Brock Bowers is more of a wide receiver than he is a tight end, right? Like, let's
Hopefully,
just be clear.
yes, yes, yes.
So he isn't going to be the guy that like lines up. He's not an inline tight end like a traditional would think, right? He's going to play more of a slot position than anything else.
What worries me is this pick feels a lot like Kadarius Toney. I think it feels a lot like Ricky Pearsall with at 31. Is this pick Brock Bowers at 13 to the Raiders is only going to be as good as they let it. If you get creative with him and drop him in the slot, put him out wide on a couple sets. move him around and get him the ball in different spots and get him in different spots, this will be well worth the pick. Because again, like you said, this guy's a weapon. He's not a tight end. Don't think, oh, I have Cole Kmet, I can't take Brock Bowers. No, you can put Brock in the slot. You can run a two tight end set with it. You can make it work. So again, the question is, how creative are you going to be, and can you get this guy involved? And I am nervous because this is not an offensive coaching staff, right? This is Antonio Pierce's defensive staff. So they've got to get creative and get him the ball. Because again, you've put yourself in another one of these win-lose situations, which is nice because you'll win. Either Brock Bowers or Michael Mayer is going to be really good, but you also either waste last year's second or this year's first if you can't be creative enough to use both. So
Yeah.
got to get freaky with it, man. You got to get. It's time to put the wing tee back out there. Do something different, man. Get these guys the ball.
Yeah. Okay. Greg Roman over here, but yeah, I don't know. I think it's good value. I think Brock Bowers at 13 is good value. There was some talk that he could be the guy that slips, just because he is. He's an in betweener of like, what do you do with him? I would have been looking at all the defensive players available and gone, man, we could have really added
I
another
agree.
level to this defense, and they just didn't do it because they swing and they miss all the time on defense. So maybe they're like, screw it, we're done drafting defensive players in the first. No
We're
more
just gonna go
Cleveland
best player
Farrells.
available.
Yeah,
They said
and
BPA.
that works for a lot of teams. So I mean, when Jacoby Myers comes up for a free agency, they're not going to have to feel like they have to pay him as much because they got Brock Bowers waiting there. So
Yeah.
I like it better than maybe I realize. All right, number 14, Talisi Foganu goes to, I just totally butchered that. Goes to the Saints. I like the pick, right? Like I like Foganu a lot. I think he's a great offensive lineman. For a run heavy team, I would have liked him a lot more. For the Saints, I don't really know what the fit is there. I, I don't know. I don't know what the game plan is. I just have a lot of weird feelings about this pick. They couldn't figure out what to do with Trevor Penning. I'm a little worried about his fit in New Orleans, but we'll see. They might find a way to strengthen his pass game, and maybe they'll be pretty balanced coming up.
Yeah, I think the position was right. I don't know if it was the right tackle, right? I don't know if instead of Fuaga going with maybe Mims, or even I liked Fatanu out of Washington a lot too. I think it might have been the pick. I think again, yeah, they whiffed on Trevor Penning. They're still looking for some line help, and they go tackle. So again, right position. I don't know if it's the right prospect. They definitely have their minds in the right spot on the pick.
Mm-hmm. We'll see. Sorry, my cats are tussling out there. All right. The Colts take Latte Latu out of UCLA with pick 15. Broke the offensive streak here. I like this pick a lot. I don't know if he would have been my first edge rusher. It's so close between him and Dallas Turner.
Ah,
But he is a freak, right? If he can stay healthy, this guy is an absolute monster. And I think him in Indianapolis it was the right time to take him.
it sounds like a Colts first round edge rusher. Like, well, if he hits the top level, man, he's gonna be special. The only issue is they never effing have for Indy as far as first round edge rushers go. So again, I agree with you. You have every defensive player available, and they had a need at corner too. In my mind, you could have got the best corner. You could have got whatever edge rusher you wanted. So again, that's my only beef with Latu. Now again, Dallas Turner goes at 9 to the Bears. Cool. All right, I'm taking Latu. I'm taking Latu there. I'm happy with that. But it's just one of those things where again, there's just too many things that I'm getting deja vu from the past. Where again, I'm wary about explosive edge rushers that the Colts take in the first round. I'm also worried about the Vikings taking a player at that position 2 picks after you do, because it was horrible when the Eagles took Jalen Reagor. Justin Jefferson goes right after. So you see him take Latu, and then the supposed best edge rusher in the class, Dallas Turner, goes 2 picks later to the Vikings. Makes me a little worried, that we're in for another, clip come draft time of being the Vikings being like, hey, we're getting Dallas Turner because the Colts didn't take him. So I don't know. Yeah, I like Latu again, but I'm nervous. There's a lot of deja vu happening with that pick.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see if this one finally pans out, but he'll probably get traded to the 49ers in a couple seasons and work
Go
out
for
better over there.
go 9.5 sacks, yeah, and get paid.
That's pretty much how it works for Colts defensive players. Uh, 16 is the Seahawks take Byron Murphy Jr.
Yeah.
Um, this is the first pick where I think you don't really like it at all, do you?
Yeah, not a huge fan. I guess if you're running a 4-3, maybe add another DT, but you'll notice in the second round they don't have a pick, and it's because they gave it up to get Leonard Williams, who they then gave an extension, who is one of the better defensive tackles in the league. So why you're turning around and taking this guy here when there is some decent DT depth in the second round? That's where you see a lot of them go. Again, you have your pick of corners, which they listed corners a draft need for them. I never understood it because I thought they had
Mm-hmm.
two solid ones. But again, best edge rushers on the board here. You could have had there are some weapons. Cooper DeJean's available, right? And I think him and a Mike McDonald offense would have worked really well. But they go DT for a 4-3 set, I guess, unless they're flipping Leonard Williams out to the edge. So it was a weird pick. It's nothing against Byron Murphy. I just don't know if I like what Seattle's doing at this point.
Yeah. Yeah, I thought it was strange. I thought they needed offensive tackle help more than anything.
Yeah, and there's still some good ones in there. We're gonna watch four more go. So
Yeah, and honestly, the guy that I think you and I both, I think Trey Foutnew would have made a ton of sense for them,
yeah,
and they just passed up on it.
yeah,
And I
we're
thought
gonna
that
let the
was,
Steelers take him because everybody
yeah,
hates me. So
even the guy that goes at the next pick, right? Minnesota trades up to go and get Dallas Turner, who, I mean, Alabama edge rushers, we talk about it all the time. Like Alabama guys are hit or miss, right? Nick Saban has a really good system. I like Dallas Turner. Do I think he's ever going to be a guy that goes out and has 16 sacks in a season? Probably not. Do I think he's the kind of guy though that every year he's going to put you in that 8 to 12 range? Probably.
yeah,
Um,
8 to
and
12, and if you have a dominant one, he's gonna be a stud on the other side.
yeah, and I like him to stop the run too. Like that's the other part of this that I think he's a little bit underrated on. Um, but I don't know. I think this was the right pick for Minnesota. Minnesota lost their quarterback and their big edge rusher, and they replaced them both in the first round.
Yeah, I like that a lot, and I think hopefully they win enough games this year to where it pans out and they're not missing their first rounder next year that Houston's going to have for that trade. So, but yeah, I agree. You get what's supposed to be the best edge rusher in the class. He comes in and should be a good addition to a rotation that they have now because they signed Jonathan Greenard out of Houston too. So they've got two guys coming in and try to replace Daniil Hunter, and I would assume one of them is going to be able to fill the role, if not the combination of the two of them. So
Yeah. All right. Amarius Mims goes to Cincinnati, and Cincinnati's forever chase to try to make an offensive line. What were your thoughts and feelings around this pick?
I'm not sure how I feel about Mims as a first round guy. Feels a lot like Orlando Brown Jr. He's 6'8", he's 340, he's a big kid, he's not super mobile. I think you're going to get beat off the edge a lot. I think he reminds me a lot of Orlando Brown Jr., which again could be one of the better right tackles in the game, I think, but will be consistently beat by the ridiculous speed that edge rushers bring in this game, especially on the left hand side on your blind side. Um, so I mean, he's got 2 games a year suiting up against Alex Highsmith and TJ Watt. He's got 2 games a year against Myles Garrett and whoever the hell they want to put across from him. And he's got 2 games a year against Baltimore's defense. So, and our edge rush isn't super crazy or fast. We've got a couple of young, fast guys that just haven't produced yet. So there's still a potential, but a well coached defense there. He's going to have his work cut out for him. So I don't know if the 6'8", 340 kid is the guy that I'd go with, especially again with Fatanu still sitting there. But the right pick, or the right position, don't know if it's the right prospect again here.
Yeah,
Just
I don't.
feels like Cincinnati, especially, you've dealt with this. You watched Orlando Brown Jr. get circles ran around him, and you moved off of him because of it. And you're like, oh yeah, let's just go draft literally the same fucking kid. It's just he's out of a different college with, he's
And
out of
I would have rather them take a lower ceiling guy but a higher floor guy, right? Like this
yeah,
is a team that's trying to compete and win right now, and it's like I don't know if I want to take big swings and have big misses, right? Like you don't need a Trent Williams. You just need somebody who can be consistent and not get hurt and block. So I don't know if I love the fit. I kind of understood it, but I don't know. I wasn't in love with this one.
yeah, right position, wrong prospect again.
All right. At number 19, the Los Angeles Rams take Jared Verse. I liked this pick. I thought he was the clear cut third edge rusher in this class without question. Again, they lose Aaron Donald this offseason. They say, hey, we're going to try to replace him with a different guy. I don't think he's in that same class, but um, I thought it was the right pick to kind of solidify some defense there.
You mind if we just talk about the Rams' second round pick while we're here too? Just talk about them both because
Sure.
they're both teammates. It's Fisk out of Florida. They're both out of Florida State. That's the other reason to just talk about them
Oh,
both.
okay.
So I like Verse a lot. They nailed Kobe Turner in the third round last year. He's a great, one of the better rookie edge rushers this last year coming out of the third. You get Jared Verse, who's the clear cut third guy. And again, you take Braden, they trade up and take Braden Fisk. And also, I don't know if you saw the video of them trying to announce that pick. Their
Mm-hmm.
plan was to get Verse to the war room and have him call Braden Fisk to announce the pick.
That would have been
But he
kind of
got
cool.
caught. Yeah, he got caught in traffic. So of course the GM and the head
Yeah.
coach talked to him, and then he got to talk to him. But super cool moment. But I like Fisk a lot. Again, a violent interior guy that gets after the quarterback. What better place to land than with the Los Angeles Rams, where you're probably gonna have Aaron Donald's phone number and maybe work out with him a couple times if he's got the time. You get to play with your college teammate and Jared Verse, who's also coming over in the first round. Again, third best edge rusher in the class is going to be good. And you're stacking him with Kobe Turner, who's had a great year last year. This Rams front is going to be getting after the quarterback. I think, as much as Kyler Murray tweeted, thank God, when Aaron Donald retired, they have restocked. And I don't think they've got Aaron Donald here, but they got three freaks of nature that are going to be getting after the quarterback this year. I love the first two rounds of the Rams draft. They just bringing the two college teammates over together that both get after the QB. They have played the draft so well,
They're a
despite not
smart
having a
team.
first. They
Yeah,
so well ran.
it's a I don't know. I'm always like I love watching their war room stuff because
Yes.
when they talked about the verse thing, it seemed like McVay and Les Snead were just on the same page. It's
Yep.
like let's do it, man. If you're confident in them, no one likes anybody else better. Like let's just do this thing. And I'm like, man, that's how you build really good teams for a really long time.
Yep.
And they always were one of those teams that we talked about. Like, man, how did they find a Puka Nakua in the fourth? How did they had to be really good at that because they've never had their first.
Well, yeah,
And
you do so much scouting in the first round to get that right. When you don't have that for 8 years, you have a lot of time to find those guys. And
yeah,
credit to them, they did it
yeah.
multiple times. They did it.
So I'm excited to see what they look like with some first rounders on this team. I think it's going to be a different look, right? Like there's going to be some young talent on this team that we haven't seen young talent on this team. I mean, last year we started to see it a little bit, but it's
Yeah.
been a long time.
Yeah, and I know Fisk was 37. In my eyes, they got two first rounders with these two guys, I think, and they're both going to get after the quarterback. And again, you have a third rounder that's coming off a 10 sack year last year. Like it is all up in Los Angeles right now, especially for that defensive front. I like what they did a lot.
Yeah. All right. At pick 20, you have the Steelers going Troy Fatnew. Fatnew. Jeez, I cannot talk today. Um, I like this pick. I thought he was underrated for an interior guy. He could play all three. He can play center. He can play both guard spots. It's a bummer that he ends up in Pittsburgh. He feels like a Pittsburgh offensive
God, I
lineman.
hate it.
It's like just a versatile guy who's solid, who's going to be good for a long time. So,
Yeah. Yeah, I hate and I'm looking at the Steelers overall class, and I wouldn't say like I'm scared or nervous. They still got to figure out their quarterback spot, but like as far as the draft goes, man, they had to me then maybe a top three, top four draft. Fatanu's great. It's a great pick in the first round. They've needed to fix O line for a while, and they finally done it this year, folks. Like I know you guys have watched draft specials for 2 years of me being like, please just take a fucking lineman. It doesn't matter who your quarterback is; they're gonna die in week 9. Get somebody out there. They go Fatuna. They're see, it's wearing off of me now.
I know.
Fatanu
Fat.
in the first. They get
Yeah.
Zach Frazier out of West Virginia, another guard in the second. So they double up on interior. Roman Wilson and Peyton Wilson, another receiver. And to me, what might be the best linebacker in the class out of NC State. He is a freak of nature. I'm not looking forward to playing against him in a Mike Tomlin defense. They go guard again, and they get one of the biggest freaks of nature at defensive tackle, Logan Lee, in the sixth. The Steelers had a really good draft, and it pisses me off. They nailed this shit, is what I will tell you. And Fata now kicks it off for them. He's a great tone setter to what their draft class ended up being.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Steelers have had an underratedly good offseason. Like this is a team that snuck into the playoffs last year. I think this year they could be in contention for that division.
If they didn't have to dump Deontay for nothing this offseason, I think they would be up there. But like there's still that little questionability of what their number two receiver spot's gonna look like. But yeah, other than having to dump Deontay because he was unhappy for a sixth, it's been a slam dunk offseason for them. So
All right. At 21, the Dolphins took Chop Robinson. Um, I like this move for them. I thought uh, he's again one of those guys that's like, I don't know. I don't know what his ceiling is, or I don't know what his floor is. Excuse me. Like I don't know if he's the guy that you're going to feel really good about, but he's also one of those guys you're like, I could see this guy being super super dominant going forward. So um, he gave this Michigan O line fits, and I think that's part of the underrated part is people don't talk about enough. Is he's the reason that like Michigan State only threw the ball 3 times in the first half is because Chop was all over him. Um, so I'm excited to see what he looks like in this Miami defense. I think it's an intriguing one for sure.
yeah, I think they're gonna dearly miss Christian Wilkinson on the inside. So I'm curious to see how that's now. If they still had Christian Wilkinson or was able to somewhat remedy that issue, a DJ Reader, just somebody solid on the interior, I'd feel so much better about this move. I'm curious to see how much attention he's going to get from defenses, but it does, folks. Doesn't matter offense or defense. It's obvious that the Dolphins like one thing, and it's guys that run really fucking fast because Chop Robinson does that too. So everyone thought it might be Xavier Worthy if they got a fast edge rusher instead. He's a stud, and he should. I don't know if he's gonna be a number one guy. I think he's too niche to be a true one. Um, he's just not well rounded enough to be a one. But I tell you, if you get him a one and you just have that speed on the other side, it's a dangerous thing.
Yeah, he's interesting. I like him a lot.
Yeah.
All right, at 22, the Eagles take Quinyon Mitchell. I think they get the best cornerback in this draft at 22 in classic Eagles fashion. If you're ever have to do a winners and losers of drafts, just put the Eagles in winners because they
Yep.
somehow always find talent.
Yep.
Doesn't matter if they're early, if they have a top 10 pick, they're going to find one of the most talented guys in the draft. If they have a bottom 20 pick, they're going to get the top guy at a certain position group. I think this is a big win for them. We'll just lump Cooper DeJean in this conversation as well
Yep.
to get arguably the second or third best corner / best safety in this class in the second. Their biggest hole this offseason, everyone was like, what are they going to do at secondary? It's like, well, they're going to get the best corner in the draft and they're going to go get DeJean, who everybody talked about like he was a first rounder. They're going to get him in the second round.
Yeah, I mean, he was talked about as a top 20 player in this class and just talent wise, right? The question marks were where is he going to play? Can he play that position high enough? That's where the remarks came for DeJean. But again, Quinyon Mitchell's a stud. Both of them are strolling up to Philly telling James Bradbury he better learn Canadian or USFL because he's not going to be here next year.
Yeah.
Yeah, these two guys are rolling into town, and they are going to be some desperate reinforcements for a secondary that needs it. And they kind of have a little bit of their own version of the no-fly zone in Philly now. When you have Darius Slay, bring in Mitchell, you have Reed Blankenship, and you bring in DeJean. Like this team is going to have a really nice secondary next year. So yeah, leave it to Howie Roseman to say, "Oh, we have a need. I'll fill it 3 times over, and then just bolster the roster everywhere else because I fucking feel like it."
All right. The Jacksonville Jaguars at 23 take Brian Thomas Jr. I love that they traded down with Minnesota. I thought that was a smart move by them.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone kind of knew they were going to take wide receiver. They moved back and probably got the wide receiver they would have taken with that pick. So
Mm-hmm.
whenever a team's able to do that, I always think it's super, super smart. Um, I don't know how to feel about Brian Thompson Jr. I think he feels very Calvin Ridley-esque to me of like the role he's going to have to play for them next year. That's whose shoes he's literally filling. So um, I don't like him as a 1, but I love him as a 2.
Yeah. And I think Christian Kirk has proven that he's the one there. Evan Ingram had a little renaissance there. They need playmakers, and I think Brian Thomas Jr. does fit that bill. So they don't have another massive glaring need, in my opinion. So getting a receiver here was perfect to fit the bill because, you can waste Trevor Lawrence if you don't put enough guys around him, right? And they tried with Ridley and it didn't work. and they obviously were not going to match the ridiculous payday that Tennessee gave him, so they go get the replacement here in the first round, and they traded back. You know, you can't. It's a win-win from all sides there.
Yeah. All right. Next, we've got the Lions moving up with Dallas. They take Teron Arnold. He feels like a Lions cornerback, physical guy.
Yep.
And they saw the value, right? They were like, man, we cannot like. I don't think anyone saw these cornerbacks being available, all of them being available in the
This
20s like
late,
this.
yeah.
Yeah. So I think the Lions saw their opportunity, said, hey, we got to go up, get this guy. We think he can be our guy. And I thought it was a smart move there, too.
Yeah, I think it was a win-win because I think Dallas is looking O-line, and now the talent pool had really thinned at this point. Where I don't
Yeah.
know if there's a tackle that I would have really loved to take at 24. So you know they're going to let Detroit come up and take the corner that they want. It's a win-win trade. I love the pick for Detroit. That was obviously their Achilles heel down the stretch last season. So they're looking to fix that as well. So I think I like Terrion honestly the most coming out. I liked him more than Mitchell. And they get a damn good player at 24, and they didn't give up a ton to go get him. So yeah, there was them staying packed. You know, they could have traded up to 15 or 20 before the draft to ensure that one of those corners was going to be there. But they sit packed, the corners fall, and you know they bided their time and made their move. So it was a damn good move by the Lions in the first.
Yeah. I thought the. Yeah. No, I'm sorry. I'm already thinking the next pick here. Um, at 25, the Packers take Jordan Morgan. This was, I thought, the biggest reach that we saw in the first, where I was like, man, really? Um,
I don't think it was the biggest. I think it was the second biggest, but continue.
do we have the biggest coming for you?
Yeah, the biggest to me is 31. And I
Mm.
love the kid, but it's 31.
Um, I didn't like this pick at all. It's so weird for me to say that about the Packers too, because they feel like a team that's really good at drafting these offensive linemen and defensive players. That's just not with the talent that was available. That's just not who I would have thought they would be going with. Um, and you've already got a pretty solid offensive line. I know you lose Bakhtiari this offseason, but it's not like he ever played for you anyways. So
It's true.
you're not really missing much.
Yeah, I would have liked Graham Barton a lot here. Just some flexibility across the line again for some injury issues to have a guy that could play guard and tackle and play tackle at the NFL level. And they can always slide Elton Jenkins back out to tackle. He has a lot of experience at guard and tackle because he's been their left tackle while Bakhtiari was out. So your franchise left guard has basically become your left tackle because your franchise left tackle's hurt. So why not just draft a guy that can play the guard spot next to him and be fine with that going forward? So I would have liked Barton a lot more. I really liked more, Jordan Moses to go to like Baltimore at 30 or like one of the teams really early in the second round. Definitely a little bit of a reach at 5. And I don't think it was a reach talent wise to me. It was a reach based off what was available, especially at those positions.
Yeah. 26, the Buccaneers take Graham Barton. Um, I thought great value for them. Like they're just like, hey, this is what we need. We need offensive line help. We haven't had a solid center since Ryan Jensen, and this is your guy. So
Yeah. Jensen goes down now. Apparently the verdict still switched because I watched the first round on NFL Network and Graham Barton goes, and they're like, oh, yeah, center, he's going to play center. And then later on in the draft, I was watching the second round, and Jackson Powers goes to the Raiders, and they're like, oh, best center in the class, or second best center in the class. And they're like, Barton's a tackle. He's not a center. I don't know why it says that. So 50-50 there. I don't know if he's going to play center or not. If he does, that's exactly what they need. That's why I had Jackson Powers mocked here to them is they lose Ryan Jensen, you plug and play the best player at that position into your offensive line. It's a slam dunk pick. So whether Barton plays tackle or center, it's a damn good pick. They needed O-line help. They didn't need a receiver or anything. So I liked it a lot.
all right, 27, the Arizona Cardinals get Darius Robinson. A little bit of a reach. I just didn't know what they were going to do. They were in such a weird spot.
Yeah.
Like I'm shocked they didn't try to trade out with like the Chiefs or something and just get out of this spot because it just felt weird. Uh, I don't know if he's really a first round guy. He might be. He felt again more of like a project outside edge guy. And I don't know if that's what Arizona needs, but I
Yeah.
guess it's what they took. I don't know.
Yeah, they have a history of taking defensive guys in the first round and not really knowing where to put them.
Yeah.
They had Zaven Collins, who was an edge rusher, play middle linebacker for a couple of years. They had They had Isaiah Simmons all over that defense and didn't know where to put him. And this kind of feels like we might be lined up for another one here because he's a fringe DT slash DN kind of guy. And they're going to have to figure out where they want to put him at. And knowing what the Cardinals have done in the past, he's probably just going to be somewhat decent at both, but not really good at either one. And he'll be, his his career turns into just being your fifth or fourth guy on your defensive line, the first guy off the bench that can play any of the spots, right? A real good
Yeah.
rotation. The Graham Barton of defensive lines, if you will.
Yeah. Now we have the Chiefs trading up with Buffalo out of all teams, which we can talk about a little bit how weird it is that Buffalo's willing to trade picks with Kansas City. You
Yeah,
wouldn't want to help them in any way you can, but
no.
um, Kansas City's decided they're building a track team. They go out and get Xavier Worthy. I'm kind of surprised they bought into the hype. I, I don't know. I just
We're
thought it
both
was
hesitant about this.
guys that run fast in the combine. It doesn't always translate, right?
No, I would say it doesn't translate more often than it does most of the time.
Does. And I guess for a late round first, I'm okay with it. I'm more okay with it. Um, I wish they would have gone and got a Lad McConkey, right? I felt like that would have complemented Marquise Brown a little bit better. Now you have just two guys who they know how to run four routes and run it really fast. And that's kind of your whole team now.
Yeah, you're banking on Rashee Rice coming back right now because I've never been a fan of second and third round guys that run a 4.2, 4.3 and are all of a sudden first round level guys. I've never been a fan of it. I don't even think he's the best receiver out of Texas this year.
Yeah.
I liked Adonai Mitchell a lot more. Um, it's a risky strategy, because we do mock drafts every year and we get to pick 31, 32, and we're like, they're here for a reason. It's going to be a reach, but it's going to be because they don't have a ton of holes to fill, right? So that you'd rather have them reach than go best player available. But again, it's not diversifying the receiver room at all. I don't know if he's a first rounder. And for everyone saying they're trying to remake Tyreek Hill, folks, I don't know if you know this, but sometimes you get Tyreek Hill and sometimes you get McCole Hardman. It's not always a slam dunk when a guy can run fast. So hoping for their sake that this is a Tyreek Hill pick and not a McCole Hardman. But yeah, I'm not sure if I love it, And again, as far as the Bills go, with the losses they've had this offseason, who knows if they can get back to the postseason, playing an Arrowhead for a chance at a Super Bowl again here in the next 2 to 3 years. But God forbid Xavier Worthy has a good game in one of those games if they do get back, because you cherry picked, gave this pick to them here at 28. And, just to move out and then trade right back up to 34 to take Keon Coleman, just take Keon Coleman to 28.
No.
Don't let
Oh,
Kansas City come up. Like,
yeah. They traded. You're saying they trade back
they
to get him.
traded back and then traded up at 34 because they're like, wait, we actually do
Hmm.
really need a receiver.
No, they traded. They just swapped with Carolina.
Well, I thought it was
Yeah,
Kansas City that
Carolina.
came up to Buffalo's spot, right?
Yeah, and then Buffalo went down
Oh,
again.
down one, down. Okay, I see what you're saying. Yeah,
Yeah,
went
they
down
went down twice. Buffalo
one
did.
spot. Yeah, to me again, I just take Keon Coleman at 28. Like, if you're set on a receiver, then go. Don't let Kansas City come up, because then you leave the chance for Baltimore or San Fran to go get Xavier Worthy, and you're not handing them to Kansas City at that point. With
Yeah,
all due respect, to all the Chiefs fans out there, right? I hope you guys have success. I want other people's teams to win, whatever. If Andy Reid's like, hey man, we want to come up to get this guy, and I'm in the AFC, especially at the top end of it, I'm gonna be like, go fuck yourself. Hopefully he's there at 32. I don't want to help you at all. I don't care.
yeah,
You could offer me next year's first to come up 4 picks, and I might think about it, but just again, God forbid Xavier Worthy has a good game against the Bills, and it's just gonna haunt him.
yeah. Uh, Cowboys take Tyler Gutton at 29. This is where I like taking those guys, right? Like if you're saying, hey, you got to take a raw development guy, like take him in the second, take him maybe later in the first.
Yeah, I would have liked Moses here instead of at
Yeah,
25 to Green Bay.
yeah.
Who
Um,
knows?
but I'm okay with this. I think it was the right play. It wasn't the shiny object for once out of Dallas, so I'll give him some credit there. But I don't know if this guy starts week one. I think it's going to be really interesting to kind of see.
The Cowboys always seem to find whoever that guy is. Like Tyler Smith was started slow last year after taking in the first, and he picked it up and had a really good end of the rookie years. So Dallas just seems to find it right. Travis Frederick was the third rounder they took in the first, and he was a Pro Bowler. And if he played longer, he would have been a Hall of Famer. Zach Martin, they figure it out. So I'm going to trust that Jerry Jones found another one in Tyler Guyton. He may be a little shaky out the gate, but he has pretty decent track records with tackles from Oklahoma. Because I'm pretty sure I want to say Terrence Smith. Did Terrence
Yeah,
Smith
I
go to
think.
Oklahoma?
Yeah, I think he went to Oklahoma.
Hopefully, I didn't just commit blasphemy. Nope, he went to USC. I was
No.
thinking of Trent Williams. That's what I was thinking of.
Oh yeah, yeah. Um, at number 30, the Ravens take Nate Wiggins. And this felt somewhat reactionary, which is weird to say, but they saw the Chiefs go get a fast wide receiver, and they're like, "All right, we're getting the fastest corner in the draft. We don't care. We're just
Yeah.
getting somebody fast. We gotta do something.
We'll teach him how to play corner. He runs fast.
He runs fast. We're gonna get this guy." I like the pick for them. I think if I trust anybody to develop defense, it's Baltimore. Now with their new DC, we'll see, but it's going to be intriguing to kind of see how this plays out for them.
Yeah, like I'll be fully honest. Like I wanted Kool-Aid McKinstry here. I knew I wanted corner. I think we covered the position because our biggest need was offensive line by a million miles, and I would have loved to get one of those guys here. But the talent pool at corner quickly shrinks once those first four guys, once Kool-Aid and Nate Wiggins are off. To me, there's a massive talent drop to what the next corner is. Versus O-line, like I felt, Roger Rosengarten, that we took at 62, might start this year still. So I like the pick. Apparently, on Baltimore's board, this is the number one corner. They had Nate Wiggins rated as the number one corner. And again, no trading up. They were patient. They waited, and he falls at 30 to them. Um, this is again one of those things where right position, it's a little bit of a head scratcher as far as who they got. I'm a little curious about it, but I don't think you could have more faith in a front office than I have in mine that they would have got this right. They've been pretty rock solid on first round picks since like Matt Elam and Brashad Perriman. They haven't missed a ton of the first. So I'm gonna hope that Nate Wiggins falls on the right side of history and that we just found ourselves another guy that is going to help lock up all these fast guys in the AFC, or just lock up any guy in the AFC. Truthfully, we need to be able to play defense. So,
Yeah, I think it's going to be interesting. Pick 31, Ricky Parasol. I don't know. CJ Stroud liked it, and a lot of people were like, "Well, CJ Stroud likes him. That's a good sign." I don't know what that means to me necessarily, but
yeah, there's a couple things here. As far as Ricky goes, I love Ricky Pearsall. This is a guy that I wanted in Baltimore. Either he, to tell you this is the problem, is that a lot of drafts I had him projected. I had him taken Baltimore, taking him at 62, just because he falls in like the 70 prospect range, and we had picked 93 in the third. And I know we're not going to move up. So that's where he's at talent wise. That's where the question comes in, is that this, and again, in a receiver heavy class, he was pick 73 as far as total prospects go. But this is another pick, a lot like Brock Bowers at 13, that it depends on what they do to involve him. And I will tell you, this is San fucking Francisco. All right. They are going to figure out how to use Ricky Pearsall. I think it's going to be extremely dangerous. I think he's going to look as one of the better receivers in this class because he plays in that offense. He's a dangerous playmaker, man. Go watch his tape at Florida. He is a dog. And I think Kyle Shanahan is going to get it out of him. And we won't. And we'll be sitting here and being like, how did everyone think this is a reach getting this guy at 31? This is a great pick. Again, projected probably late second, early third guy, but in the right offense, I think he might be worth pick 31. So it's just one of those things where if it was any other team really draft, if Baltimore took him at 30, I'd be like, I'm not a fan of this. There's a lot here that we could have got.
well, and I think too they're preparing. They can't keep everyone
Yeah.
right. Like
No.
the time, the clock is ticking. Right. There was a lot of talks that Debo was going to get traded day two. Didn't happen. I still don't think it's completely out of the question. Right. I think they're probably more likely to trade Debo than they are Brandon Ayuk, just
Which is
because.
crazy.
Yeah, I think play style wise, Debo's more likely to get hurt. Debo's a little bit older. Debo's more expensive.
Well, Pearsall to me fits more what Debo does. Like Pearsall will be that guy to take those running back snaps from the wide receiver spot and be happy with it.
Mhm.
So to me, schematically and all those things, it makes more sense to trade Debo. But again, you're talking about financially eating a cap hit and trading this guy versus just trading a guy that's an expiring free agent and not signing him.
I think
Financially, to me, it makes more sense with Ayuk, but
they saved 7 million on Debo. He still has a 21 million uh, dead cap number.
yeah.
They trade him post June 1st. The dead money goes down to 6.6 million, and they save 22 million against the cap.
Oh shit! Bring Debo to Baltimore. That's where I'm at.
So
Come
Debo's
on
more
over, brother.
probably like post June is my guess is when they try to trade Debo. Because yeah, you can't. Brock Purdy's owed money. You're gonna have to pay Brian and Ayuk, and they don't have the money to pay either one of those guys right
Yep.
now. So
Yeah, I've got a crispy fourth round pick and an undrafted running back with your name on it. Kyle Shanahan, bring Debo to Baltimore.
yeah, I'm very curious. I think Debo gets probably very similar to the Stephon Diggs deal, probably a second and then a day 3 pick.
Yep.
Would be my guess, but we'll see. But I think that's what this pick was in preparation for. And then Carolina trades back up into the first. They move up one pick with Buffalo, and they take Xavier Leggett, wide receiver out of South Carolina. I thought it was a good move. He's a
I
local
did too.
kid, and I like the fit.
Country twang to that
Yeah,
voice, Stubby. Did you hear that
I
interview?
did. Yeah,
I
it's pretty funny.
love that. I love that. Yeah, people are really balking at this move. Like, okay, not really sure why you're trading back into the first round to get a second round receiver. But here's the thing about picking at 33 and 32. You give up whatever you gave up to go up the pick. You have a fifth year option to play with now. And as far as receivers go, once you got outside of Brian Thomas Jr., it was whatever that team ranked them as. It was you could survey 32 teams in the league and not get the same ranking twice as far as what 5 to 10 in the receiver class looked like. Because obviously San Fran had Ricky Pearsall at the top. They had Xavier Leggett. Somebody had Keon Coleman. Somebody had Lad McConkey. It was a dogfight of whoever the best receiver was after Brian Thomas Jr. went. So you get a fifth year option with him. You didn't give up a ton. You bring him home, and he's a freak of nature. Holy cow! This guy you want to talk about just pure athleticism. He might be one of the best athletes in the draft. He is a freak, and if Bryce Young has any time to throw to him, it'll be dangerous. But that's yet to be seen. So,
Well, and if you're Carolina, you're so far away, you got to take swings like this, right?
yeah,
Like you gave up a lot of capital to get Bryce Young. Take a swing on a guy like this. I have no the difference between him and Keon Coleman is, and even Xavier Worthy, I think is very, very slim margins, kind of like you said. So, hey, take a big swing on a guy that you like, and hopefully it works out.
yeah,
All right, last couple picks we're going to talk about here. 33, the Bills take Keon Coleman. We both like Keon. I like Keon Coleman a lot. I
I do
think it's a
too.
smart pick. They could have taken him at 27. They got some more capital. I think I would, if I were them, I would have stayed at 32 and gotten that fifth year option for him.
Yep.
I don't know if that move makes a ton of sense for me, but
Yeah, I agree. There's a lot that comes financially with that move, but again, Keon Coleman didn't run well at the combine, but he plays faster. Some guys just aren't track athletes. That's why you have to take 40 times with a grain of salt because you have guys like Tyreek and guys like Xavier Worthy who ran track in college and in high school and could probably do it at the world level given a couple months training for it. But Keon Coleman is has game speed, and I think him stepping in to be he's going to be damn good with Josh Allen throwing the football. I feel pretty confident in that going forward. So him, Curtis Samuel, they're going to be able to move the ball again. Won't be Stephon Diggs and always open underneath because he's not the route runner that Diggs is, but he moves. He does move. That's for sure.
yeah. Next one we have Chargers actually trade up to get Lad McConkey. This feels like a Jim Harbaugh guy. You know what I mean? A really good route technician. Um, I thought it was good value, right? They needed offensive line, they needed wide receiver help. They got both in the first 2 rounds. So,
Yeah, my still one of my favorite tweets. You're talking about the them throwing and everything was
mhm.
it's like Jim Harbaugh, Justin Herbert, Joe Alt, and Lad McConkey at the draft, and it's just the picture of the grocery store, like the wine sign. It says "exciting
Mhm.
whites." I was like, Joe Alt, Lad McConkey, Justin Herbert, the exciting whites, and I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, it's good. But yeah, I agree. I mean, Quentin Johnston is supposed to be your big guy over the middle. He's supposed to be your big threat down the field. So what are you going to get is a Hunter Renfro esque just always going to be open with his footwork right underneath. I think it's a good, and I think it's a very underrated style of receiver. I would take Hunter Renfrow in Baltimore in a heartbeat. And I said that
Mhm.
on Twitter and got laughed at. But the bottom line is when you have a guy that can get open with just pure technique, it opens up so many things because it almost never fails you. It doesn't wane on you as you get older. And it can work deep, it can work short, it can work mid. Route running is very, very crucial, obviously. And Lad McConkey is a damn good route runner. So I like this pick a lot. And I think it also sets up more that rhythm and timing offense that they can run around their run game that they're going to have. Lad McConkey's going to be very good in that type of offense.
Um, Next one, we're going to jump around a little bit in the second here. Uh, I can't say his name. Jazon Newton. He
Oh,
falls to. Oh,
yeah.
go ahead.
Yeah, Jershon Newton. Yeah, you get it. You said it right.
Uh, he falls to 36. A lot of people thought he was a first round talent to Washington. I like the fit with Dan Quinn. It feels like he's a little undersized for D tackle, so I think he can kind of develop him up and make him into something. So,
Yeah, this is them planning for the departure of either Jonathan Allen and or Deron Payne, because to me they kind of already have two really good defensive tackles. But you could always slide Jonathan Allen out to the end if Wharton really does come on to his own. You could put him and Payne on the inside, play Allen on the out. So kind of setting up for that. But again, yeah, anytime you could get a guy that's supposed to be a first in the second, you're feeling pretty damn good about yourself. So
all right. Kool Aid McKenzie goes at 41 to the Saints. I like the value for a
yeah.
second. I think that's a pretty good spot for Kool Aid to go.
Yeah, and again, the corner talent drops pretty hard after Kool-Aid comes off the board here. So for a team that needed a corner, stack him across from Marshawn Lattimore, and he's probably the successor once Lattimore gets traded either this year or next. Um, it's a damn good pick, damn good positional value, and damn good overall value getting this guy all the way down in the 40s. So
Last one I want to talk about is Jackson Powers Johnson going at 44 to the Raiders. I thought this was great value for the Raiders. Solidifies that offensive line a little bit, and I think he's going to be. I don't know. He's going to be one of those guys we talked about. It's like, man, how did he fall out of the first?
yeah, I remember I mocked him at 26 to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And again, I think Graham Barton is a tackle at the next level. So to me, that makes Jackson Powers Johnson the best center in this class. And it's worked out pretty well for the teams that have drafted the best center in the class. That's one thing that I will tell a lot of teams, hopefully, are starting to see this pattern that we're seeing, that taking the best safety or the best center in the class, whether it's in the second or the late first, is usually a pretty damn good strategy because oftentimes those guys are top 15 talents, but again, their position just doesn't say top 20. So they slide and they slide and they slide, and then you get them. And look at that. Oh my God, Tyler Linderbaum's an all pro in his first year. Crazy.
Yeah,
It's because no one, its center is not a value, it's not a left tackle, So it's worked. It worked out for the Chiefs with Creed Humphrey. It worked out for the Ravens with Tyler Linderbaum, and we'll see. Jackson Powers Johnson definitely puts a damn good exclamation point for the Raiders getting him and Brock Bowers in the first two. Those are two really talented guys. So
I agree.
yeah.
I agree. All right, you got any other thoughts on the draft you want to cover before we get these people out of here?
Um, just two quick bullet points. Adonai Mitchell in the Colts in the second. If I wasn't a fan, and they've already got people in Colts media coming out going after reporters that are putting out, the unnamed sources don't like his attitude or whatnot.
Mm,
The his issues with his diabetes scare me a little bit because I mean that's something that can take your life if you don't take it seriously, let alone take away your football career. So it's a guy that I would have loved to have in Baltimore. Mark Andrews has diabetes, so we could have got
mm,
that under wraps real quick. He deals with that. He's dealt with that his whole life. So if he figures that part out, that kid's a playmaker, man. And him across from Michael Pittman Jr. is a terrifying 1-2 to have for Anthony Richardson. So I really liked Adonai Mitchell in the second to the Colts, and then like I said, the Steelers just absolutely mashed the first round with Zach Frazier. Peyton Wilson in the third is a stud. It was the leading tackler for NC State like the last 3 years, was the leading tackler in college football last year. So it's a downhill runner. And I hate to say it, and I'd have to sit down and full dive on it. The Steelers might have the best draft class here. Like they fucking hit some home runs in the later rounds. So should be damn happy if you're a Steelers fan. The Ravens and the Chiefs had overall pretty good drafts as well. So Dallas, not exciting, but other than running back, pretty much filled the holes they needed to. So a lot of teams got a lot better. There wasn't a ton of head scratchers, and it was a damn exciting and record breaking draft to say the
Yeah.
least. So
I do want to talk about. I do love the Broncos stealing Troy Franklin in the fourth. Like, I feel like that's good value, especially after dumping Jerry Duty this offseason. I do
yeah,
think he's going to be, again, one of those guys that not DK, like not the same as DK Metcalf, but another guy that fell. And you're kind of like, man, why'd that guy fall? Everyone kind of had him as a first. He fell all the way to the fourth. It's very similar to DK in that way. And I think the talent's there, and I think he's going to end up in the right situation to be really good. So,
yeah. The last bullet point just to upset Chiefs fans is Brett Veach drafted McCole Hardman before DK Metcalf. That's your fun fact of the day. So also Sky Moore exists. I
yikes.
couldn't tell you why, but he does. So that's that. That's
Fair
gonna do
enough.
it. That's gonna do it for the draft grades. So we appreciate you guys hanging around, listening for an hour and a half. We're gonna try to get Grant on today. Schedules just didn't line up for to get him back on for the grades. Also, we would have talked for 4 hours. So
Yeah.
yeah, love you, Grant. We'll have him back on eventually. If you guys like the guests, man, let us know. We'll get some other people on here, add some variety and such. So just let us know, man. Get over our social medias. But do we have a plan for when our next episode's gonna be? That's the question these people probably wanna hear answered.
I don't know if we have an exact plan.
Yeah.
I do like the thought of we might start inviting some people on and maybe do a deep dive into their team this off season.
Oh yeah.
So there's an idea that's being floated out. There's some stuff that you could see. We might not be completely done for the summer. Um, I've thought about maybe doing a full trivia episode where it's just trivia.
That'd be kind of sick.
We go back and forth for 90 minutes. So
That'd be kind
probably
of sick.
won't have like any hard dates for anything, but we're probably not done until the preseason exactly. We might,
Yeah.
you might get an episode in May, you might get an episode in June, you know what I mean? And then once the season starts up, that kind of thing. So
Yeah.
we'll see.
Well, kicking into gear probably a good month before the preseason starts. Get all of our prediction, or maybe around the preseason, and getting
Yeah.
all of our predictions in, the award predictions, the records, the playoffs, all the jazz that you guys are used to. So we'll definitely get to all that stuff as the preseason kind of rolls around. But hopefully, some more sporadic episodes, but nothing set in stone. So you might just have to pay
Yeah.
attention to our social media pages every once in a while, or turn your notifications on Spotify or Apple Podcasts wherever you listen, so you get that notification anytime we
YouTube.
post a show. Yeah, YouTube as well. It's been popping as of late. So if you want to stare at these ugly faces instead of just listen to these beautiful voices, you can always do that on YouTube. So with all that being said, we appreciate you guys hanging out for an hour and a half with us, and stay safe, and we'll see you next time.